joining us today. My name is Damon Scott. I'm a marketing director here at Pleasant Valley Business Solutions. Today we're going to be talking about product resellers in the federal government market space. Give you a quick overview of Microsoft Dynamics NAV for government contractors. That's part of Pleasant Valley's Business Solutions product that we offer to the government contracting community. So we're going to provide an overview of that. Again, it's a fully integrated business management solutions for product resellers in the government contracting space. Some of the areas that we're going to cover for today's presentation are going to include managing item catalogs, managing contract catalogs, sales quotes, and how you can produce those rather easily, and basically everything from a quote to cash process. So with that, just want to let you know a few housekeeping things that we have going on. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we will post it to our PVBS YouTube account later today. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the question section. We'll try to get to those as we go along. If we cannot get to your question, we'll try to contact you separately. Hopefully we can get to everything. Again, later today, you'll receive an email invitation to take a post-webinar survey. We really appreciate your feedback to help us make this a better learning tool for everyone in the future. So if you could just take a minute, answer a few questions for us, let us know what we did good, what we did bad, and how we can improve it. Let's see here. So the agenda for today is going to include a brief introduction about Pleasant Valley Business Solutions, PVBS, and then an overview of product resellers and the federal government. So if we're able to, we'll answer questions as we go. So please, if you have a question, put it in the question block, and we'll try to jump into those. Otherwise, we'll also try to save a little time at the end to get to questions too. I'm sure everyone's probably going to have a lot of questions. So with that, I want to introduce you to Pleasant Valley Business Solutions, PVBS, if not familiar, is a top-tier Microsoft Business Solutions partner serving only the government contracting market. And our headquarters are just outside Washington, D.C. in Reston, Virginia. And so we have a unique access and insight into the GovCon community. We've been doing this for over 12 years. We've been very successful. We have a lot of partners and companies that look towards us for our experience and innovations in the Microsoft systems. Also, PVBS is a direct resource to both government contracting and Microsoft communities. So the Microsoft Dynamics NAV for government contractors, it's a rich, robust accounting solution compliant with federal rules and regulations, provides complete integration and ease of use, and also PVBS is driven to develop excellence in providing the most comprehensive solution to our customers and partnership channels. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Paul Skirksey, our VP of Sales and Marketing. He's known as a thought leader in the government contracting business sector. Help thousands of government contractors help them with their business systems. So I'll let you take over, Mr. Skirksey.
Welcome. All right. Well, thanks, Damon, and thanks for everybody for joining us today. Like Damon mentioned, our business is focused on helping government contractors with, their business systems. And from the last slide, you could see that it's not just product companies. We also have a lot of clients that are providing professional services. And one of the unique things that we do is really help those companies that are doing both products and services. And we see that as a growing trend in the market space, is that companies that in the past were providing engineering services to the government, looking to expand that and use products as a channel to drive new business. So we're looking forward to providing that presentation for you today. Today's going to be focused on the product side, right, but you can also go to our YouTube channel or our website to get details on webinars we've had in the past related to the project side of the system. So the application we're going to show today is Microsoft Dynamics NAV. It's been around for about 25 years, and today there are over 106,000 companies worldwide using it. And I was actually, back in the 90s, I think the company I worked for, we were user number about 25 or 26,000. So in that time, there's been significant growth. In fact, Microsoft bought the company called Navision Software back, I guess it's probably been about 12 years now. And there's 4,000 partners throughout the world that are focused on NAV. Our business really not only is a focus on dynamics, but really at one level deeper, which is we're focused on dynamics for government contractors, and that's going to be one of the things we show you today. All right, so Microsoft's model that they have is everything is delivered through partners. And the way that it works is Microsoft delivers solutions that work for a lot of different industries, and we've put up some of those key industries that Microsoft partners work with. And the idea that Microsoft has is partners, they not only deliver the solutions to the marketplace, but they fill that last mile. So whether it's reporting capabilities or workflow, or it's knowledge of the industry, that's how Microsoft completes out the solution. So our organization has been recognized by Microsoft as, number one, their top partner in the government contracting space, and really a go-to partner for them in they've developed a government contract advisory board, and we're one of the founding members of that to give Microsoft feedback around what do government contractors need to run their business. All right, so this is just a quick little roadmap, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but Damon, if you can build out the last couple years here for us. So today, we're going to be showing you NAV 2013, and we're excited for the release of 2015 that is just in process coming up. And some of the things that are really exciting about what Microsoft is doing is, one, I'm sure there's a lot of folks on the phone that use Office today, and Microsoft is making this transition to Office 365. NAV, out of the box, works with Office 365. It's on Azure. And one of the things, which Azure is Microsoft's cloud platform, but we've got clients that also run this solution on AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, and then also on Google's platform. But the thing that's coming with 2015 that I just want to touch on right now is really about mobility. So with the future versions, Microsoft is going to make the solution not only available via the cloud or your laptop, but also mobile devices. So whether it's an iPad, or it's Microsoft's pad-delivered solutions, those are things that this future version is coming out with, more mobility and working on all the different devices. And this just gives you an idea of the different Microsoft products, because there's a lot of confusion that there's multiple products out there. We're going to focus on NAV today, but there's 3 other ERP products. They focus on different types of markets, and then Microsoft CRM. And then CRM is also an application that we've got integrated with NAV for clients that is something that can help them depending on how their workforce gets managed. Now, we just threw up a slide that give you an idea of some of the companies that we have that are working on either the SOUP schedule. I guess these are all SOUP contractors. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So today is not focused just on SOUP, but we know it's a hot topic because just awarded actually, and just protested.
Yes.
So they pulled back the awards, but we know that from some of our contacts that that'll be coming through again soon. So just a couple more quick slides, and we're going to get into the demonstration here.
And this is just an overview of some of the purchasing thresholds for governments when they're dealing with products. And probably most of the folks on the phone are familiar with this, but I just want to throw that up there because the government does allow for micro purchases these days. They can use credit cards similar to Visa or MasterCard up to $3,000, and then it kind of scales up from there to different contract terms.
Yeah. And one of the things just on the credit card side is that the government more and more is looking towards credit cards as a payment method. And one of the things that this solution provides is for folks on the phone that are taking credit cards is we provide the ability to process level 3 credit card transactions. So folks that aren't familiar, level 3 is an additional level of detail. It's for business-to-business credit card transactions. And what it does is it actually passes through the details regarding that purchase. So it gives a higher level of security on the purchase. So it's not just authorizing an amount, it's also sending through the details of what's on that order. And because of that, you get a lower rate. So we've worked with some of our clients, they're saving 1% off their credit card bill. So just think, if you're running $90 million through credit cards, 1%, it's a nice little bonus at the end of the year.
It adds up for sure. So this slide just talks about, obviously, the federal government being a sovereign entity, that they have the right to impose extensive audits and surveillance requirements under the terms of the contracts that they own, which we all know. So, but that actually leads into why, obviously, a solution like Dynamics NAV for government contracts is important. So, with that, I'm going to turn this over to Paul, who's going to do a demonstration on his machine. Bear with us as I switch it over to Mr. Skripsky's computer.
All right.
He can give you a demonstration of the NAV Dynamics for government contractors.
All right. Well, thanks, Damon. And the idea today is not, because we've got an hour together, it's not meant as a detailed demonstration. It's meant as a way to introduce you to the product and some of the capabilities. The first thing I want to start out with is kind of just a general overview to give you some thoughts on how the system operates and core capabilities. So the first thing is, it has what we call a role-tailored client. So based on your role in the organization, you're going to have a home page designed a certain way. So I logged in as a sales manager, and what I'm seeing are some key elements that I'm using to manage the business. So everything from looking at the volume of sales orders in my demo system to elements of my Outlook. So each one of these areas also has some configuration options. So, for instance, if I wanted to show my emails, what's the latest in terms of email in my email box, I can do that. I can also expand and collapse any of these different areas. I'm also able to see, in addition to emails, I can connect online to different Microsoft sources. So I'm connected into the Microsoft Dynamics homepage, so everything from customer source, which is the homepage for clients to get information about product news and documentation, and the different Microsoft communities. Different lists that I'm able to manage. So in this right-hand side, I'm looking at a list of who are key customers that we have, key items that we manage, any notifications. And I'm able to update these lists by adding or removing. So for instance, Amazing Technologies is a company we work with a lot. I want to get into the detail of, who are the contacts there, also information regarding their balance or outstanding sales orders. I can get easily into that information by just clicking a button. To give you an idea of the breadth of the system, I'm going to go to the department list, and within the department list, you can see all the different modules inside the system. So everything from financial management, your GL, cash management, AP, AR, fixed assets and inventory, sales order processing, purchase order management. So these are two areas we're going to focus on today. For our clients that are project-based businesses, there's a whole project accounting module. So everything from setting up new projects, collecting time and expense, billing and revenue. Today's focus is going to be around product contracts. So setting up those product schedules, so whether you're on SOUP or First Source 2, one of the GSA product schedules, you're able to manage those, and we'll get into details of how you can define not only the contracts, but rules within those contracts. So that kind of gives you a general overview of what's inside the application. Now I want to start with some elements related to, for companies that sell products, at the core, it's about the items that you sell. So the first thing I want to do is go over to my item catalog and talk about some of the capabilities related to that item catalog, how you can categorize things, and actually get a high-level view of information. So on the item card, you've got some key information that is pertinent to managing the catalog. So everything from your item number, description, units of measure. ways you can categorize things. We've got a series of different reports and dashboards we can make available for people if they want to track, whether it's information regarding how much product we sell, that in this case is Cisco, or printers, routers, network equipment. So you can categorize your different items that you sell and be able to report on those different categories. Over to the right-hand side, I've got information regarding what's out there in terms of purchase orders and sales orders or service orders that we have, and you can actually drill into these details. So I can see that I've got one of these items that's outstanding on a purchase order. Looks like there was one that was created on a PO, but we didn't have any quantity, and I can actually get into the detail and actually pull up that PO, see what date it's planned to be shipped, but from that high-level item view, actually drill into additional details as needed. So I won't go through all the tabs, but just some of the key ones we'll talk about that I think are particular to our clients. The second is around replenishment. So from an inventory perspective, most of our clients, they're not managing any inventory. But if you do, you can actually define, from a planning perspective, the thresholds. But for most customers, it's not about actually stocking inventory. It's about replenishment from a drop shipment on a particular demand from a sales order. So that item, whether it's purchased or produced or assembled, I can identify what that typical expectation is. What is the lead time? So this is going to let salespeople know, when we're out there quoting a customer, what's the expected time that we can get this to you based on what our vendors say to us. Also, information from the purchasing side related to when we make this purchase, who is our preferred vendor? So on this tab, it's telling me my preferred vendor, in this case, is ABSI Incorporated. ABSI, they call this item a little something different than what we call it to the customer. So you're actually able to track the different ways that the vendors identify items and how you identify those items. You can also have multiple vendors that might provide this same product to you. So this is my preferred vendor, but in my list of vendors, I can identify that full list. We might buy it from other vendors, not only what they call it, but their lead time, and then also what is their standard pricing. So I could list out multiple vendors and how they price these items. For most clients, planning is not an important part of it, but potentially item tracking is. So depending on what you're selling to the government, you might actually have a requirement to serialize or lot track items. So it depends on the types of products. For a lot of clients, it's not important to track the serialization, but for some, it is a critical component. So you're able to identify on each of these items what is the level of tracking for the item. So whether it's serialized or lot tracked, in the detail of how that serialization or lot tracking works. So whether it's tracked only on the outbound side, or if you're actually storing anything, you might want to know what serial numbers you have in-house. So there is very detailed capabilities relating to managing your item catalog. I won't go through all the details today, but just understand that you can use either full elements of the item management piece of it, or for a lot of our clients, they're just using a small piece of it. They just want to know, what is the item number, what's the preferred vendor, and what do they typically charge us. So that's the first step in terms of clients that are selling products, is they've got the overall catalog of items. It might be fed to them. So if you're working through distribution, someone like Ingram Micro or Synex or Tech Data, they might be your supplier on these items, and they might have the catalog that they're going to feed to you, and then you're going to upload into the system. So that's the first step, is identifying the types of items that are part of your catalog. The next thing is, now you've got multiple contracts that you might be selling goods under. And you could have the same item on multiple schedules, potentially. So let's go into one of our contracts, and we'll go ahead and pull that up and talk about some of the capabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my soup contract, since that was one of the things we initially talked about in the presentation. So I've got my soup 4 catalog, and we know that hopefully soon soup 5 will be out. Description of this catalog, information regarding the contracting officer. So who is your contact over at NASA? Who is your internal program manager? So who is the person managing this contract on your side? The effective date of that contract, and then elements related to the fee. So we know that NASA has changed the model related to how they track the fee. So the fee for soup used to be a separate component of the price. We know that it's now embedded, and now you're just charged a fee. So depending on the type of contract, you're going to identify how that IFF is tracked. Rate shopping is related to if you are selling to a client and you want to look across all your different schedules to understand what is the schedule we should sell this item to you off of based on what's best for the client, maybe based on what's best for your organization. The rate shopping gives you the ability to manage that. The next thing to talk about on your schedules are different rules that you might have. So you can have not only contract-specific rules, you can also have company-specific rules. So some of the rules are things around margins. So when your salespeople out there are quoting new orders, you might want to have a rule that if margin is less than, let's say, 2%, it needs a higher level of approval. So you can identify based on those margin thresholds what is the approval process. You also are going to track details related to contract-related elements. Can you have open market items on a quote that is a GSA quote or a soup quote? And if you can, what is the value of that? Details related to credit card charges. And I mentioned earlier about level 3 credit card processing, big savings for our clients, and we feel the government is going more and more in that direction in terms of mandating level 3 credit card processing. So it's good for the government from a security perspective. It's good for our clients in terms of lower fees from the credit card companies. So you can define those different rules within that contract schedule. The next thing is identifying what's on that catalog. So we do give you the ability to be able to import your catalog pricing. We've also worked with clients to integrate with their suppliers to bring in pricing. But we'll talk a little bit about also the whole pricing on the fly concept. So now what we're getting into is what is the pricing particular to this contract vehicle. So you can see in my demo system I've got 6 different items on my soup for contract, and I'm identifying what are the items that I'm selling, information related to the manufacturer code, who is my preferred vendor. This helps the salespeople to know that on this contract, maybe we've got some type of special agreement with a certain supplier, and based on that, it's going to let them know who should be the supplier that we reach out to in terms of pricing first. If there's any minimum quantities, and basically defining tiered pricing and effective dates for the pricing, and is there any maximum markup on an item? You can only mark this up 3% from the cost or whatever it might be. The system is also validating between your contract catalog and what's your open market pricing to help protect you from charging the government more than what you charge for open market. So the system, Damon put up that slide about compliance, and it's not meant to scare you. It's meant for you to understand that there is a compliance piece to both the services business and the product business, and we try to build things in, to make that compliance easier for you. So now, once you've defined the catalog that you have, not only your corporate catalog, but pricing specific to a particular contract, that catalog, now you can have your salespeople, start to actually process orders. So we'll go into the quoting process and talk a little bit about some of the capabilities around quotes inside the system. So a couple things I can do. I want to just look at my quotes. So I'm going to go ahead and just filter this list down to the quotes that I have in the system. The system can allow you to set up views. For instance, if I'm a sales manager, I can actually set up these views to say, I've got 5 different sales reps that generate quotes. I might create 5 screens over here to the left, or 5 views that here's my quotes that Damon creates every day. Here's my quotes that Paul creates every day, and Mark and Jessica and Catherine. So I can define those different groups and then have them as lists over here so I can quickly see, who's creating X number of quotes a day. Maybe there's a certain threshold we have, and I can look at that quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a quote that I created earlier. And what you're seeing is information regarding this quote. So this is my internal quote number. This is the customer that we're sending this quote off to. So I talked to a customer. They say they're interested in purchasing some products from us. I would go ahead and choose from my customer list. And I can search by any of these fields up top. So you can see that here it's, the little funnel is over the item number. But if I go ahead and I take my cursor over to the right, I could look at it by name or city. So I can quickly choose from my customer list, and it fills in all the relevant information. Where's the customer located? Who's our main contact? I can choose a different contact if needed. So now I'm getting into details related to the customer says, okay, when do we actually need these goods by? So, it could be a certain date, whether they need it today or hopefully a date in the future. It identifies based on who created it, the person that is generating the quote. What is the contract vehicle? Go ahead and telling me I can't update it because it's not open. So that's all right. We'll go ahead and...
Oh, you had the delivery date in the past.
Okay. Yep. So what happens is once we release an order, the only way to update it is to reopen it. And I guess in this case, this quote has already been turned into an order, so I can't change it. So, some good security to make sure folks like me don't make mistakes.
You don't do it twice.
Right.
Exactly.
So, now we've got our internal contract number. So I'm choosing from a list of my contracts. And then based on the contract that I choose, I can only choose certain items based on what's on that vehicle. My customer PO number, how many archived versions do I have of this quote? So the idea would be I might have produced a version 1 option of this quote, which might have been for, in this case, 5 of these individual items. But there was a second version that I put out there that could have been for, in this case, 10. So as the customer changes and flips between those different options, you can create multiple versions of the quote. And then if they wanted to go back to one of those previous versions, they could actually just take that version and make that the active version. So I could go to any of the previous versions, restore it, and now that becomes the active version. So if you generated 5 different quotes for one of your clients, as they changed it, you could have that history and then go back to any of those versions. So if you were quoting offline, you'd have to maintain all those worksheets. This allows you to have it in one place, easily get to any of those different versions of the quote. Down in the detail, you're seeing what's in the body of the quote. So information regarding what items are on there. The system fills in your default vendor, also identifies it as the drop shipment, and fills in all the relevant pricing and what that target markup is. You might also have, the requirement to make any margin adjustments. So I can adjust them on the individual lines, or I can make a margin adjustment to the overall order. So maybe say that, hey, our target margin on this order is 15%. The system can update all those individual lines on the quote. Other thing related to quoting is you also can identify from a shipment perspective where are all of the items being shipped to. So I had 10 of this individual item, but in this example, it was going to my Fort Drum Army Depot, and it could be going to different addresses at Fort Drum.
Hey, Paul, question came in here, and while you're talking about that,
Yep.
I think it might be a good opportunity. So the question is, how do you deal with items that are requested but not approved?
Yep. So if you have items that, I guess the question, if you have items that aren't approved, they're not going to be on your catalog. So usually you don't, there's somebody that's maintaining that catalog. So if you're going to sell it open market, what you would do is at the line level, I would go in, and I'm not going to be able to update this because it's an order that's already been processed, but I can go in and identify that it's an open market item. So I think that's what clients would often do is they would take something through the open market process if it wasn't approved. If they wanted to wait for it to be approved, they would just wait to have it added, and then it would be available for quoting. So you can do sales open market by just taking off that contract on the line level. So the last thing we were just talking a little bit about is the whole shipping process. So I could have items that they're ordering 10 of them, but they're shipping to 2 different locations, 3 different locations. So that ship worksheet allows me to break out the shipments differently from where that order was placed. Next thing is just some elements related to quoting. You know, you can import stuff from Excel. Other thing that you're able to do is we've got this idea of a print worksheet. And the thought of a print worksheet is you are ordering these items. In this case, I've got 2 items on this. I've got, you know, a conductor and an extender. I'm buying them from 2 different vendors, but it's drop shipped to the customer. And when the customer ordered it, they said that this item is called a bundle. So I can actually have that print worksheet look differently than, you know, what's the line level detail. So the line level detail, we're going to use that to send it off to the vendors, but the way it looks to the customer might be different. So the print worksheet allows you to have the printout be different than what's the detailed lines. So the detailed lines are going to always be everything on there, and then on the print worksheet, I might want to just see, in this case, showing that this is a bundle item. So once this quote gets approved, now we want to take it through the order process. So the customer says, and this one's already been approved and turned into an order, but what happens is when you hit this make order function, it actually creates 2 paths. It creates a purchase order, and on that PO, we're going to go to the PO related to this. So quote 1019 has been turned into an order, and we're going to go to the PO, and we're going to also go to the sales order. It created both at the same time. So let's go over to the sales order side of this. So 1019, that quote, when it got approved, it became a sales order. One of the things that I like is it uses the same number. So now, easy for me to remember that here's the details, that APC cable, and extender 1019. So it went from that quote process to the order process, and now when I look at the line level detail here, I can actually see where this is in the shipment process. So when I go to the order, it was a drop shipment setup, and I can look at, here are the 2 POs that got created. Other thing that's nice is the purchase orders, they're coded the same. You know, so if someone calls up and says, hey, you know, quote 1019, can you tell me where that is in the shipping process? I can go right to the sales order. It's numbered the same way. And then you can see the POs. They're actually numbered in a similar fashion. You've got 1019 and 1019-01. So if I had 3 different vendors, you know, I'd have 01 and 02. And now I can go into, you know, that actual PO. So now here's the PO, and you could see, you know, it's just got the 1 item because we were purchasing from Ingram just the extender. You can see where this is getting shipped to. And then the details regarding the shipment, you know, I can look at the line level details. So everything from, has any of it been received yet? In this case, I can see that none. The quantity to receive is still 10. I could also look at any notes over here. You know, so maybe there was a note that says this is back ordered. Will ship in 2 weeks. and if this happened, I could also send it off to somebody. So maybe I want to notify the sales rep that this was back ordered, or the order manager. I could actually create that note, send it off to somebody so they could see the details of the fact that this thing is back ordered, and make sure that we identify that to the customer. So from that main quote process, that system creates both the purchase order and the sales order, and these things, they actually stay in sync. So when I receive the 10, or maybe a partial shipment, maybe I receive 5 of this purchase order, it's going to automatically ship the 5 on the sales order, only on a drop shipment. So for our clients, 95, probably 98% of what they do is drop shipment. Some people take stuff in-house to kit it or do some type of packaging. But this drop shipment process, it ties the two things together. It streamlines it and really makes it easy for clients to manage. So now we've gone through the process of creating a quote, taking that quote from the order process, and creating those 2 trails of the order. All right, so that's kind of a high-level view of the order management piece of it. So now let me talk a little bit about some of the reporting aspects of the system, and talk about some of the capabilities there. All right, so some of the key things that people look at from an order management perspective, there's things like the daily invoicing report, backlogs and bookings report, managing your contract fees and commissions. So we won't go through to run the different reports. If people are interested in particular reports, what we can do is put together a little package for you and send out some of those details related to the reports. I want to focus a little bit about the financial side of the reports, and then we're going to go a little bit onto the dashboard side of things. So those will be the next 2 steps that we get into. So let me go over to the financial side of things and talk a little bit about some of the financial reports, that ability to manage them. I guess the one thing that I do want to touch on, because for any of the companies that have issues related to managing the timing between the quotes from a shipment and invoicing perspective, NAV does a great job of managing that variance between the shipment and invoice side with reports like your shipped not invoiced report, and also the received not invoiced report. So it gives you that visibility of any accrual entries that need to be made to make sure that the costs are lining up with the revenue in the system. So I want to touch a little bit about the different financial reports that are available and how people can manage the financial side of the business. So it's not just an order, contract management. All these things are posting in real time on the financial side of the business. So we're going to go over to a sample financial report, talk about some of the capabilities here and how things work. All right, so I'm going to go into what we call account schedules, which is the financial report writer. And the financial report writer is the place where the accounting organization is actually putting together the reports. So from here, what you're going to see is this is where you're defining the level of setup. So I'm defining for each row what's the details of what we're putting on this financial report, where the data is coming from. So does it come from a posting account, a totaling account, which is a range of accounts? You could have a formula within your chart of accounts in different formatting options. In terms of where does that data come from, I'm choosing the account that it comes from. Is that information, that change, which is within a certain period or certain departments or balances, beginning balances? In terms of visibility, do we always show this row, not show it, only show it if it's not 0? That's how you're defining the lines on your financial report. And then in terms of the columns, this is how I'm defining the column layout. So whether it's departmental views, there's also options for things like period to date and year to date, monthly trends of these reports. Pardon me. So once I've defined the rows and columns, I can look at a print preview of it. I can also look at an overview of it. So that overview mode allows me to not only see the details, go ahead and change my date here, not only show the details of what's in the account, but actually drill down into them. So if I wanted to, sorry about that. If I wanted to drill into any one of these accounts, in this case, I drill into my subcontractor account, I can actually get down into the details of what's making up that total. And then there's a function in the system called Navigate. And what Navigate allows me to do is actually drill across the system. So I can actually drill into a transaction and then drill across it. So in this case, it comes from a general ledger transaction. That entry came from a purchase invoice. So for companies that are on the product side, a vendor ships something to you and it creates an entry in the financial system. You want to know the details related to it. So what was on that initial purchase invoice? I can click Show. It's going to pull up the details of the document here. So all of the items that you sold, the details related to it. When I go to the GL entries, this would be all the financial transactions. The vendor ledger, this would be the detailed AP side of it. So it's going to show me, when we created this initial purchase invoice, we owed the vendor $4,000. Remaining amount is 0, which tells me that we've credited some or applied a payment, whatever it might be. And you can see in my demo system that we applied a payment in full. It was a wire transfer. If I want to look at the details of that wire transfer, I can go ahead and pull that up. We can look in our bank ledger to see the details of that wire transfer, what bank account did it come out of, did we reconcile it? So maybe it wasn't sent to the right account, or maybe something happened. I don't know why it didn't get cleared yet. Or we didn't do our bank reconciliation. So I just wanted to touch on, at a high level, the financial side of it, because it's not just a product resale system. It's more than that. So it's not just for quoting. It's the whole quote-to-cash process. So everything from creating that item catalog, contract catalog, generating sales quotes and purchase orders, but at the core, everything is ending back up in the financial system. So you've got that ability to manage all aspects of the business. So the financials, the sales order processing, purchase order management, any type of warehousing that you might have.
Okay. So I know as we're wrapping this up, if you have any questions, please let us know. I have one more question to come in, Paul, and while we're on this, maybe we can talk about it. But the question is, if the vendor costs change, how does Microsoft, do they automatically update across the board, or is there a manual process? So I think the question is asking if you have the different vendor costs in there, and if that changes, and you have multiple RFPs out there,
right,
does that change the pricing automatically, or how's that controlled?
Yeah. So what's happening is within the item, you're defining the costing side of it. Pardon me. So let me go back into an item to explain this. For most of our clients, because they're not inventorying items, is different than when you have items that are in inventory. So I guess that's the first. It's hard to answer the question without knowing the details of that.
Sure.
But what usually happens is, for people that are drop shipping, the cost comes from the purchase order. So it's not coming from the details of the item card. So let me cover, because I don't know I can't talk back and forth with a person, I'll just explain a little bit about item costing. So in the system, you can have FIFO, LIFO, specific, average, standard costs. So you're defining for this item typically how is it costed. For most of our clients that are drop shipping materials, what happens is the cost is coming from the PO. So let's go back to that sales order to explain the details of this. So I'm going to go back into the sales order, and we'll pull up the item. And what you're going to see is on the line, actually let me go back to the quote, because I think the quote is probably the easiest place to explain this. So let me go into sales quote. Sorry about that. So we're going to go back into the sales quote, because this is really where it starts, and then I'll talk about the update of it. So what you see is on the line, you have the details regarding that unit price and also what the unit cost is. So you can see over here that unit cost field. So initially we expected this item to cost $8.50 from the vendor, this item to cost $10. So if the costing changed from the time we quoted it to the time that we placed the order with the vendor,
sure.
What would happen is if we go back to that sales order now, on the quote, on the purchase order, you would update the line of it. So we'll go back into the sales order, and from that sales order, if you remembered, we could go into the drop shipment POs. So here are the different POs, and now on that purchase order, when we pull up the purchase order card, the cost that's going to be associated with that item is going to be whatever is on this PO. So if this vendor, now it's $9, the costing is its actual costing. So I'm not using the costing from history, I'm using the costing from this PO. So a long explanation, but really the way to think about it is the cost comes from the individual purchase order related to that sales order. If there was any type of adjustment to it, you can actually post an adjustment. So for instance, if there was a freight charge that came through after, there's something called an item charge code where I could add, the shipping cost, load it into that item so I got a true picture of what my profitability was on the order. So I can see now we've got a bunch of different questions that have come through. I'm going to cover one last thing, and then I'm going to go through and cover these questions. And the last piece that I want to go into is some of the dashboard capabilities and talk about just some of the overview things that you're able to do. So we've got a set of both financial views, project views, and product views. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of the financial views, and then we'll cover some of these questions and wrap things up. So what you have is, overview dashboards, both from overall business perspective, balance sheet side, income statement, also on the cash flow side, being able to get to the key details of what are those elements of the business that you manage. The thing that I'm showing is when I select into a cell, what you're able to see is that the information is not keyed in. It's coming from a data cube of information that allows the system to auto-refresh and provide dashboards of information for the executives to manage the business. On the product side, that product cube allows you to track information by those different measures I talked about earlier, related to the products that you sell, how you categorize them, the margin related to it. So it's actually matching up the purchase order with the sales order, and you're getting real-time view of what was the margin on that order. So that kind of ties into that individual's question regarding how you update the pricing on it. All right, so let me go into a few of these questions that have been asked here. So let me go into the question list. So there was a question here regarding product and project within the same order. So the question is, can you handle an order that has both services and products on the same order? And we do have the ability to handle things like that. And what happens in those scenarios is inside the system, when you generate a quote, if there's services related to it, we've got a function called Make Job Task Order. And what this allows you to do is actually take the services from a sales quote, put it onto a task order inside the system, so then you could actually track that throughout. Let me just cover, we'll cover two more of these before we sign off. All right, so I guess the next question is related to sales tax reporting. Does the system provide the ability to submit the sales tax to the different states? So the base system does all the calculation of sales tax. It doesn't actually make the submission and payment, but there are a couple different third-party add-ons that I know clients use that will actually do the sales tax submission for you. So I don't think that that was a client asking the question, but if it is, I'll pull it up and we can send those details off to you. But we do have that ability to manage the sales tax and on the orders, and then there is an add-on that will actually do the submission and potentially the payment of the sales tax for you. And then the last question was related to, what is the time that it takes to implement a system like this? And the reason why I want to cover that is because it was asked two different times. That is a difficult question to answer, in part because it depends on the size and complexity of your business. And what I would say is that on average, for companies that are product-based companies, it's probably around 4 months is an average, 3 to 4 months. But depending on the size of your business, it could be a 6-month, 8-month project. But we have clients that are smaller that they can be done in a shorter time frame. But what we'll do is, for the two people that asked that question, we will reach back out to you, and we can get some specifics from you so we can answer those questions. Damon, any other questions that you have on your dashboard?
No, I think that kind of covers it. So what I'd like to do is just, again, thank everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions, please contact either Paul or myself. You can contact us also at info@pvbs.net. Go to our website, follow us on Twitter or LinkedIn. We'd be happy to help you out.
Yeah, and thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Today wasn't meant to show you all aspects of the system. It was meant as an overview. Also, the sales rep that's assigned to your account will reach out to you and see if you want to get into specific details regarding any aspect of the system, and also go through a full demonstration. But again, we appreciate your time. Happy holidays, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Take care.